Uh, Assalamu alaikum. Very good afternoon, everyone. And I can see quite a good number of participants already joined in this very interesting webinar from different part of South Asia and also the other part of the world. So the title of this today's webinar is Current Afghan Situation and Bangladesh. Even though we kept Bangladesh in the title, but there will be mostly discussion on also South Asian context and also the global geopolitical scenario. So let me just give a very small introduction about today's webinar. We all know that Afghanistan, the land where all empires fall, is again in turmoil even after long unrest for the last 4 decades. Recently, the violence has escalated and hopes to achieve sustainable peace are flickering due to clashes among various varying sides, including the present Afghan government and the Taliban. The Taliban were ousted from power in 2001, but now it has emerged as one of the major players as US force pull out of Afghanistan. The current situation there is very uncertain and fragile as the shifting of power is on the way, making the whole geopolitical equation in South Asia volatile. As the SARC member states, Bangladesh and many other SARC countries, they are very worried because of any kind of unrest there may create a regional crisis due to refugee influx and increased armed conflicts. Many powers are trying to fill up the void in there left by USA, Pakistan, and India are already in confrontation there over its geopolitical gains. And China will be eyeing to implement its Belt and Road Initiative projects and increase its influence too. On the other hand, the Indo-Pacific strategy of the USA are also centered around Asia that will make Afghanistan an apple of discord in this region again. The peace, prosperity, and economic development of the South Asian region are interlinked. So an inclusive political settlement will be a win-win outcome for Afghanistan and all the countries in this region. As a prime regional research institute, the South Asian Institute of Policy and Governance of North-South University has taken this initiative to understand the current situation from an academic and geopolitical lenses, as the emerging unrest and power shifting in Afghanistan will have consequences in entire South Asia region. The aim of this today's webinar will be to understand better the evolving situation of Afghanistan, assess how Afghan situation is like to have impact on its neighborhood and beyond, and how Bangladesh should prepare to the changing situation in Afghanistan and around. We are very delighted and very grateful to have a quite impressive panel in this today's discussion. Especially, we are so happy by having Honorable Dr. M. Mustafa Mastoor, the Special Representative and Senior Advisor, the High Council for National Reconciliation of Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, as a special guest of this today's event. We are grateful to him because with his very busy schedule, he agreed to be with us at least for some times and give his remarks. Other than him, we have the chief guest with us, Ambassador Masood bin Momen, Foreign Secretary, People's Republic of Bangladesh. Our keynote speaker of today's session will be Brigadier M. Sakhwat Hussain, Senior Fellow, South Asian Institute of Policy and Governance of North-South University. And then we have three distinguished discussants, Mr. Farooq Ahmed, former Executive Director, BRAC International, Ambassador Shohidul Haq, Professorial Fellow, SIPG NSU, and Professor Lailufar Yasmin from Department of International Relations of University of Dhaka. With this beginning note, I would now like to invite our special guest of the session, Honorable Mr. Dr. M. Mustafa Mastoor, to give his opening remarks. I would like to give a small introduction of him before we go to him, and then we will go for the keynote presentation and other discussion. Dr. Mastoor is working as a special representative and the senior advisor on international affairs to the chairman of the High Council for National Reconciliation of Afghanistan. Dr. Mastoor's career spans a wide range of areas. He worked as Minister of Economy of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, from August 2017 to September 2020. From 2004 to mid-2017, he served as General Director of Budget and subsequently as Deputy Minister for Finance at the Ministry of Finance, as well as Senior Advisor to the Chief Executive of the National Unity Government. Dr. Mastur was a key member of the political negotiations that led to the Afghan National Unity Government in 2014. For over a decade, he was a key counterpart to all donors to Afghanistan and key financial institutions. As the Deputy Minister of Finance, he was the key counterpart for IMF negotiations between 2009 and 2017. He also led negotiations for regional projects such as Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India gas pipeline, and the Central Asia, South Asia regional electricity transmission project. He is one of the founders or contributing members of many regional and international boards, including the G7, SAARC Development Fund, and others. Dr. Mastur earned an MD in medicine and an executive master's degree in business administration. So with that note, I would now request Dr. Mastur to give his deliberation.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I hope everybody hear me loud and clear.
It's okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. First of all, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's really a pleasure to be with such a distinguished panelist today in the webinar to talk about the current situation in Afghanistan in relation with the interests of Bangladesh. Let me begin with thanking the South Asian Institute for Policy and Governance for organizing this webinar and this opportunity so that we could share our views to the distinguished participants and the panelists about the peace situation and the war situation in Afghanistan. Actually, I was interested to be with you through the up to the end of the webinar, but just since last evening, two immediate meetings, I was interested to be with you up to the end of the webinar, but just yesterday it was decided that a delegation headed by the chair of the High Council for National Reconciliation to go to Qatar to directly meet again with Taliban, with the special envoys of the all countries related to Afghanistan, and following day on Wednesday to talk, to be there with the Troika Plus meetings, so that after all these intensified conflict situation, if there is still any opportunity on the peace process. So I'm apologizing for leaving you early, but anyway, I'm sure that many of your the panelists in this webinar, they heard about Afghanistan and the background. Just would like to briefly discuss it, that the conflicts in Afghanistan started in 1978, and then in 1991 there was the fall of the government, and then the former Mujahideen came to power, and then in 1996 Taliban took power, and then in 2001 after the September 11 event, then again the international community helped the resistance in Afghanistan, and then it was resulted to a collapse of the Taliban government. Since 2001, Afghanistan had a lot of progresses in different fronts. Though this multi-dimensional war in Afghanistan over the last 2 decades has taken a heavy toll on the economy, not only the economy of Afghanistan, but also the economy of those countries in the region, particularly those who were part of the proxy war in Afghanistan. But since the February 2020, when US agreed or made the High Council And the High Council includes the Ministry of Peace and also the negotiation team. And also we have two decision-making forum. One is called the General Assembly, which is around 150 individuals from men, women, different sectors of the society, to the opposition and political parties, but mainly led by the Leadership Committee, which is around 50. So in last month in July, the first negotiation table, the fighting started in different parts of the country, and unfortunately we lost a number of districts and also the capitals of some of the provinces just in the last 4 or 5 weeks. But what were the lessons learned and what led us to this point? I'm sure that we have here Mr. Excellency, Mr. Shaukat Hussain, who was responsible for the Election Commission. I think most of the problems in Afghanistan started from the election disputes in 2009, 2014, and 2019, which created some anger among the supporters of the government and supporters of the state. But at this moment, the fightings are going on in different parts of the country. Particularly in the last 2 weeks, it was really heavy. It created heavy casualties on Taliban. One report says that the number of casualties happened to Taliban in the last 2 weeks were more than the one year casualties they had before. So now we are looking forward for the 2 meetings which will happen tomorrow and the day after. Because at this moment still we don't see a stalemate on the fighting in the ground, because if there is no stalemate in the ground, you don't expect much in the negotiation table. But still we are looking forward to see if there are more progresses on tomorrow's meeting and the day after in Doha. But at this time, it's not the only problem that we face. The COVID-19, the droughts, and the influx of the internal displacements creating problems, not only for us, but maybe soon for some regional countries as well. But at this moment, all eyes are for a meaningful negotiation in Doha. The main differences that we have with the Taliban at the moment, though we would like to talk about the power sharing, the confidence building, and also to work on a constitution that both sides to agree. But one thing that they emphasize more is the Islamic system, their own Islamic system. Many times they have been asked, including the last meeting in July, that what model that you would like that to implement in Afghanistan, whether because we have different Muslim countries that they are not like each other, whether we should follow the Saudi model, whether we should follow Indonesia, Pakistan, Qatar, Turkey, Bangladesh, or anybody else. But what they say no. They want their own model. It is the model that they've been taught in the madrasas in Pakistan. And this is the model that they have implemented in the last 20 years in their own, in the areas under their own control. And this is what now they have a strong belief on that one, which is totally different from any other Muslim country, which is the big issue at this moment that we are talking with them. At this moment, the situation is unstable, and it will provide further threats and further opportunities to other terrorist groups like Daesh, Al-Qaeda, and the rest of the terrorist groups. But luckily, we have the strong support of the general public, who has been the support of the state so far. And we think that at this moment, the role of the region and the immediate neighbors and extended neighbors, including the rising star Bangladesh is important for us and important in Afghanistan, and it will be important in the future of Afghanistan. And now the discussions with all these countries are going on, and we hope that the Troika Plus, which includes US, Russia, and also China and Pakistan, will also help in the peace process in the future. Though with Bangladesh in the recent years, the diplomatic efforts are not as strong as it was before, but we hope that still we have our embassy there, and we hope that this will be continued. And I'm sure that many colleagues, including the BRAC organization, that I worked very closely with them in several positions that I was in the government, and they have a strong understanding of Afghanistan, the social fabric, the current Afghanistan, and the immediate needs will help all of us to build the strong bond again. And particularly, we hope that with the any political settlement that we will have with Taliban, the role of ulama of both countries will help a lot. But as I said earlier, the developments in Bangladesh in all indicators in the last 20 years, or even before that, for the last 50 years, it's a model for the South Asia, and we hope that in different fields we will be able to improve the interactions and benefit from that one. And we hope that the Bangladeshi citizens, government, and ulama could help the peace process to come as soon as possible. And once again, I would like to thank the South Asia Institute for Policy and Governance for this opportunity. My colleagues will be here, even if I leave for the other meeting. And we hope that the ties will be between the High Council for National Reconciliation and the Institute for South Asia Policy and Governance will be stronger. We have also here a center called Center for Strategic Studies on Peace, and we hope that the ties of these two centers to help both sides. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Mustafa Mastoor. And again, we are grateful to you saying that with your very busy schedule, and we do understand how difficult and busy time you are passing in Kabul with all this negotiation process and the developments in the field. So we really get enlightened by your statements that you have said. Our audience got a kind of a prelude to have a very vibrant discussion probably in next 1.5 years. So again, I thank, and with that, we will now go for our keynote presentation. I just again let you know that we have our Vice Chancellor of North-South University also with us, Professor Atikul Islam, as the chair of the session. So the modality would be that we will have a keynote presentation by Brigadier Sakhawat, and then 3 of our discussants, they will give their comments. And then at last, our chief guest, Foreign Secretary Ambassador Masood bin Noman, will give his speech before the chair conclude his session. We'll try to have some Q&A in the meantime. So I would encourage our participants to post your questions into the chat box if you have. I'm not sure whether we'll be able to address the Q&A, but we'll try our level best. So with that, I now invite Brigadier Sakhawat to start his keynote presentation. And I would request him to a little bit concise the presentation, because already we have some introductory things. So if it is possible to finish 30 to 35 minutes. Brigadier Sakhawat, please start.
Pakistan, and the second is Iran. And then we have these 3 of the northern Central Asian Muslim majority countries.
I cannot hear.
I beg your pardon? Hello.
Please continue. Please continue.
Okay. This is what was in 1980s, the great game. All of you know what it is. It has been popularized, the term has been popularized by Rudyard Kipling, and it was between Russia and Britain. And it continues. To me, the great game continues till it is there. This is the first Afghan war. There's a long story of it, but making it short, the Elphinstone army lost his 4,200, about 4,200 troops while withdrawing from Kabul after having occupied Kabul for 4 years. And all were massacred en route, except one Eastern sergeant whose name is William Bryden. And he was left to tell the story that Afghanistan is a place which is a graveyard of empires. And that was the story. Now let's see the features of Afghanistan. We all know, don't have to say much, but only thing that I would like to highlight is that since it has no seaports, its main exit is mainly through Pakistan, which is the port of Karachi, Port bin Qasim, and now probably they may be connected with Gwadar if they are connected with the CPEC. And the other side is the Iran, the Chabahar port, particularly with Shahid Beheshti port, where India is developing that port to bypass Pakistan, because there's no access given to India by Pakistanis. And there's a ring road which connects the entire Afghanistan from south to north. And the crossing is a very important crossing, which goes from Karachi port, is the Spin Boldak opposite Chaman of Pakistan. Then goes to Herat in the Central Asia. And the famous rivers are, Kabul River is one of the famous, and then Amu Darya, of course, the Kabul River system. Afghanistan is still fully unexploited natural resources. They have almost everything: gas, oil, copper, iron ore, lithium, very important, and ceramic, to name a few. This is, many writers have found as most ungovernable country, or graveyard of empire, as you said. And this is the ethnic distribution of Afghanistan. If you look at the ethnicity, you'll find 40% Pashtun, then the Tajiks, then Hazara, Uzbek, Turks, and Baloch, much less in percentage. This is distribution of the ethnic minority. They are mostly on the west and the north. East is completely dominated by the Pashtuns, east and the southeast. And the population spread is mostly in the cities. So the vast area are left almost empty, but the central portion is dominated by the Hindu Kush. Now, briefly, as Dr. Mustafa Mastoor has already given, you can read, I don't have to explain. The watershed of Pak-Afghan relation was since 1954, when the Americans took the base in Peshawar and they refused to cooperate with King Zahir Shah. And then there was a conflict when Dawood was the prime minister from 1960 to 61 in a place known as Bajor. Initiation of recent Afghan conflict, I think he has already said, but a lot of events had happened between 1973 after ousting King Zahir Shah, Dawood taking over, and till the occupation of America in the name of enduring freedom. And before that, the world's biggest proxy war the history has seen was the Operation Cyclone, initiated by CIA and assisted by ISI till Soviet defeat. USA left, and Afghanistan was almost left to the Pakistanis. Now, then we say Surge of Mujahideen. There were Peshawar 7, Iran 8 known groups, and one of the largest covert operations, CIA said, Operation Cyclone, I've already said. And the war almost changed the hand when US supplied latest, deadliest Stinger missile, changed the course of war. And a lot of Stinger missiles were never found back. Saudi Arabia called it jihad. Egypt supported with almost all Muslim countries, including the volunteers from Bangladesh who went, fought in that jihad, so-called jihad, not to be confused with the Afghan Mujahideen. This was a separate brigade under Osama bin Laden. Then come to first civil war, as Dr. Mustafa has said, then the rise of Taliban, I have said, and the third civil war when the Taliban overpowered the Kabul and they ruled for 4 years. And 9/11 enters the US directly built up to NATO and overthrown the Taliban with the help of Pakistan at the front line. In all cases, Pakistan have been strategically, tactically, and geopolitically frontline in entire Afghanistan conflict still today. Then the interesting is that when Pakistan was helping America against the Taliban, then the Quetta Shura was made with the support of Pakistan, and the Taliban were trained. They kept on training. The Quetta Shura directed the war, which now we are seeing in Afghanistan. So now, as it is said, and it's my opinion, that the Afghans, whether it is Taliban or other Afghans, have defeated another superpower, that is the USA. This is depicted, this is national game of Central Asia, particularly Afghanistan, known as Buzkashi. And this is a game between two powerful team to snatch characters from one to another. And I just depicted it that the game of superpowers still continuing. It has not ended. This is Buzkashi, as I say. US surge troops, you know, this is Bagram base, 40 kilometers north of Kabul, which was constructed primarily by the Soviets, and then of course the Americans made, and they left at the dead of night. The US occupation surge 2001 to 2021, they had the highest number of troops, 110,000 in the year of 2011. Then they started receding. Okay, and then I come down to the effects on the South Asia and the regional geopolitics and strategy due to internal conflict and the end of 20 years US occupation. And you see the picture of one of the architects of Afghan invasion, Donald Rumsfeld, who visited US base in 2003, and he was very sure that they are going to change.
Dr. Sagwat, we cannot hear you.
Why?
Oh, no, it's okay now.
You can hear me now?
Yeah, it's okay now. Yeah, please.
Okay. Very important border is with China, which is known as Wakhan Corridor. And then there is no direct border with India. Yet, India has been always in a good relation with any Kabul government, whether it is communist, whether it is Islamist, except the Taliban period. So India has lot in stake in Afghanistan geopolitically and also strategically. Mind you, whole Afghan issue is, from our side, is India-Pakistan issue. It has been India-Pakistan issue, and it is still India-Pakistan issue. Now, geopolitical and strategic realities of South Asia. Please go through. It's self-explanatory. I don't have to explain much. These are the points which I have jotted down as the strategic realities of particularly the South Asia. If explanation needed, I think I would be able to explain in Q&A section. Geopolitical strategic predicament for India. Now, India is a big player and big partner, there's no doubt about it, in South Asia and in the World Forum. But the point what I'm trying to make, the biggest predicament that India has, that it doesn't have a direct access to Afghanistan. Whereas from 2001 till date, India has invested $3 billion in improving the hydroelectric dam, power transmission, and very significantly making Afghan parliament building after the name of Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Indian policy support existing, as I said, all the government. Now, continued influence over Afghan, particularly the Northern Alliance. I'm sure Dr. Mustafa Mastoor would not take any offense. He is also a part of the Northern Alliance. I see his two photographs. One is very esteemed Ahmad Shah Massoud. The other one is Dr. Abdullah. So now India is definitely trying to establish a relationship with Afghanistan. Jai Shankar has been following the Taliban delegation in Moscow and Doha as well. But though neither India admits it, nor the Taliban admit it. The problem is that India is too much dependent on US. Therefore, they were in Afghanistan on the behest, and they did definitely some of the development work. Now, if you see the predicament, I said, of India, it has to go through Chabahar port of Iran, and then they have developed roads which connects the ring road and goes to Kabul, which they have not been able to finish. And because of the American sanction and also the other predicament, India is still lingering in finishing those projects. China, a new geostrategic equation. If any country is going to be benefited after the withdrawal of US, it is China. And nobody knows how much $1 billion they will carry in Afghanistan for rebuilding. And they have been assured by Taliban by now that they are not going to interfere in Uyghur and not Turkmenistan. They have already eyed on the mines, Mes Ainak mine. They have already spent 2.83 billion, and they have the plan to connect Afghanistan with CPEC and ultimately BRI, keen to mediate a peace deal. China also wants a peace settlement between two warring groups. Pakistan-Afghan relation, as I've said, it has never been very good, except that some period of the Taliban. The partition gave entire geostrategic importance to Pakistan. As I said, cheapest and shortest route. If you look at the distribution of the Pashtuns around the Durand line, you will find that half of the Pashtuns live on the other side of Durand line in Pakistan. Therefore, the Pashtuns in Afghanistan and Pashtuns in Pakistan, they are nothing but blood brothers. Therefore, the Taliban or any other Pashtun organization takes the shelter in this Pashtun area. And many of this Pashtun area is not under the control of central government of Pakistan. Historic Pakhtunistan problem, we all know, and I've talked about 1960-61 clash over Bajaur. Afghanistan invaded and they were defeated by Pakistan army, and after that, there was no war. Relations with Taliban 1 and Taliban 2, I don't have to say much, and frontline state during Soviet jihad and civil war thereafter. Now, this is the Durand line, complete Durand line, and you see the distribution of the Pashtuns. And these are the Pashtun area, and some part of Balochistan is also Pashtun speaking and Pashtun clans. I think this is Quetta, which is now the headquarters of Taliban Shura. Of course, they have now shifted their office to Doha. This is the disputed Bajaur area, which was fought between Afghanistan and Pakistan. Now, route are very important. One is to understand. This is the shortest route which takes to Chaman, Spin Boldat, and Kandahar. The other route is a long route which goes through Khyber Pass to Jalalabad and northern Afghanistan. So south is fed by Spin Boldat and north is fed by Turkam. Now this was the NATO logistic line. And they followed from Karachi to Quetta to Chaman and Kandahar because NATO troops were in the south of Afghanistan, disposition of troops. And this is the famous historical Khyber pass, which goes through Jalalabad to Kabul. This is entirely US logistic route, very difficult, and US logistic trail had been raided number of times. This is the ring road I was talking about, and you see the connection with Pakistan, Iran. Here is another connection with Pakistan, Iran, and then the Central Asia. This is very, very important. Now that Taliban have captured one province here, Janjar, this cuts this road, and on the north, Kunduz cuts this road. So it's very strategic and very important road as far as the Afghanistan is concerned. The resurgence of Taliban, please go through. I'm not going to speak much. It is all self-explanatory. They have already captured all crossing points, 6 very important crossing points, and they are earning money from their taking as a tax. They are trying to take 3 strategic cities, Kandahar, Lashkar, this is old. They have already taken Kunduz, and they have also taken some other very strategic areas. This is to pressurize. They have to also face the old warlords. But this all is to pressurize Kabul to sit on the peace table, and more or less will be dictated. Current Taliban against Afghanistan, my opinion, the key points of military success, please go through. And if there's any question, I'll be ready to reply. They have a better command as far as I'm concerned. As a militarily, I see initiative into the local commanders in the battlefield, effective spy networks, use of modern and rudimentary communication technology. They have identified the opposition, the shortcomings, and generation of huge fund, estimated 1.5 billion US dollar yearly only from drug money, and then of course the rent seeking and the other donations coming from the Middle East. Pool of recruits, there is no dearth of recruits. It's available in Pakistan, it's available in other areas. But what I feel, this is my opinion, they have tremendous support in the rural masses, very conservative rural masses, in particularly in southern Afghanistan, where the Pashtuns reside. This is a depiction. What was in 2017? Hardly any places that the Taliban could control. And this is the last, taken from BBC, 8th August 2021. You could see they have taken Jarans, Herat they are fighting, they've taken Serapul, the entire province, and most importantly, Kunduz, which used to be the place of the strongest warlord of Afghanistan, is Rashid Dostam, and this is Talokan. Of course, there's a fighting going on in Kandahar and Lashkargah. What will be the result? We will come to know in a few days' time. Now, other regional countries, including Turkey, Iran has some of the interest, very, very important interest. First, they contacted Taliban to took assurance non-interference. Central Asia connected to Afghanistan with Chabahar port, energy market for Iran, Afghanistan, Shia population in the west and north. Happy to see the US withdrawal from eastern border. Russia, contact with Taliban, assurance no export of Islamic ideology in Central Asia. US defeat is the sweet revenge of 1979. This is what I feel. I haven't read anywhere. Russia is partner to $25 billion US project that Dr. Tastur, Dr. Mustafa was talking, that is TAPI, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India pipeline. And influence, they have tremendous trying to influence through their Islamic Republic, Uzbeks, Turkmen, and Tajiks. Now, Turkey is very important, very interesting. What Turkey has the interest, they have decided, they have already discussed with Taliban that they will protect the Kabul airport. The only Muslim NATO country which was there, they lost 15 soldiers. Yet Taliban never attacked the Turkish troops deliberately. Turkey is a revival of historical influence of Ottoman Empire in Central Asia and Afghanistan. They have an influence on 3% Turkmen people living in North Afghanistan, also close to Uzbeks, Tajiks, Hazaras. Marshal Dostum has just come back from Turkey. He is in Kabul. He took the treatment in Turkey. He had always a good relation with Turkey, and he is being Uzbek. Endeavor to improve better ties with US, telling that I am part of NATO and I will look after your interest in Afghanistan. Now, Afghanistan-Bangladesh relation, I'm almost through. This is what I jotted out. Definitely, we have our esteemed Foreign Secretary who would definitely dwell with it. I just pointed some. Importantly, Afghanistan provided safe passage to many Bengalis escaping from Pakistan, including military personnel during 71, 72, when Zahir Shah was ruling. It recognized as early as possible in 1973. So far, no head of the state either visited either country. Bangladesh, there is no ambassador from 1979. 2010, very interestingly, the former special envoy to Afghanistan and Pakistan, Richard Holbrooke, requested Bangladesh caretaker government to send troops to Afghanistan. Having consulted political parties, Bangladesh declined the request. BRAC is working. Mr. Farooq is here. He will be definitely giving the activities of BRAC, and they have earned good name, as you have heard, Dr. Mustafa Dasur, and a lot of Bangladeshis who are working in multinational companies still in Kabul and some of the other areas. Afghan embassy functional in Dhaka, as the doctor said. Why US failed? This is one of my, you can say this is my research. They are not clear about their aim. They first went for Al-Qaeda, then they toppled Taliban, and then they didn't know what to do. So they went into national building. And without understanding the culture, the heritage, and history of Afghanistan. Now they depended on mythical warlords like Dostum, Shirazi, Khalid, Razik, Ismail Khan, and against whom the civil war started, against whom the Taliban rise. Killing and abusing of the civilians, all impunity, committing serious war crime. There were pictures where the soldiers were urinating on the dead body of Afghans. Relied heavily on Northern Alliance, pardon me saying that, remained weak in that area. And Taliban challenged the northern area. If you see, Taliban was never strong in northern area, but now they are going to northern area first. Outsourcing leadership. Most of the leadership were in America. They have been brought, and many of them do not have much connection with the rural Afghans. Induced corny economy without economic development in that sense, except infrastructure which suited the strategic need of the American soldiers. As I said, not understanding the culture and the resolve of Taliban. Lastly, failed to calculate Iran's strategic advantage. I will take 1 minute here. They depended totally on Pakistan. They did not consider that there could be an alternative route and source is Iran, which could take them to the port. Now, my theory, anybody may discuss about it. Pakistan has taken revenge on USA. On 1971, that US failed to assist Pakistan during Bangladesh Liberation War. I can go on and I can give you examples why not and why I am saying that. Look at what they did. They threw out CIA and they operated themselves with ISI. And then they threw out USA and they were trying to control Afghanistan. This time they played a double role. And because Mr. Bush insulted Pakistan by saying that I'll put you back to Stone Age, I think my theory would be very correct. if you interpolate, you will find that Pakistan has put US in very, very difficult situation. And the US did not recognize the strength of Iran. They could have used the strategic strength of Iran. Now, in my conclusion, please, somebody, all of you can read, I believe. I will only say in my conclusion that we in Bangladesh, we want not a civil war, another civil war, or fourth civil war in Afghanistan. That will absolutely unbalance the region and as well as South Asia. We want a peaceful negotiation, and we hope good luck to Dr. Mustafa Mastur as he is going to Doha. I'm sure they can work out. Afghans are very brave people. They can withstand, and they should decide how their country would be run with a give and take. They have suffered for 40 years. The people of Afghanistan shed blood. Bangladesh has historical ties with Afghanistan. In my childhood, I have seen a lot of Afghan people in the districts doing small little business. And the book which I wrote in 2002 is still valid. And let me take the privilege of showing the book. The book is in Bangla. I intend to write one after a few months, if I am okay, in English. This is the book which has been, at that time when it was printed, about a few hundred copies were taken by the BRAC. And this is available on dokomari.com. This will give you the background, particularly Bangla speaking, Jara Bangla, Poren, Porte Paren. It's a well-documented book, as I said, of my few experience and my reading. I am now all open for Q&A.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I apologize more time.
No, thank you. It's very analytical. I'm sure that our discussions will carry on with that keynote. And also, I'm seeing lots and tons of comments coming in the chat box. We will try our level best to at least get some of the responses from the comments. Now, I will go directly to our first discussion. So it is Professor Lailufar Yasmin. So before going to her, I just give a very short brief about herself. Dr. Lailufar is a professor at Department of International Relations, University of Dhaka. She has undertaken her studies at University of Dhaka, Georgia State University, Atlanta, and Macquarie University, Sydney, Australia. She has done her fellowship in the UK, China, USA, and Scotland. Her areas of research include Bangladesh's politics, economy, and foreign policy, South Asian affairs, China's rise, maritime security, and Indo-Pacific region, and women's participation. Okay, sorry, I was muted, so I don't know that whether you have heard me. So I would now invite Professor Lailufar Yasmin to give her comments.
I have 10 minutes, right?
Yeah, it would be better if you just finished within 10 minutes.
I think I'll finish before that. Thank you, Honorable Foreign Secretary here, Honorable Vice Chancellor, distinguished speaker, and fellow distinguished discussants. It's a privilege for me to be invited in this August gathering as one of the discussants myself. And thanks to the South Asian Institute of Policy and Governance for organizing such a timely webinar, because whatever happens in the neighboring region that affects us very much, and we need a strategic discussion about these sort of issues more in the academia, and also where we need to involve policymakers. SIPG has done that very well, that we have here policymakers as well as academics discussing about what is happening currently in Afghanistan. My profound thanks to Brigadier General Shakat sir. It has been a comprehensive presentation about the history of Afghanistan, about what is happening right now, about the interest of the bigger powers, about how Afghanistan has been. That part was very interesting. That how the Taliban have defeated two superpowers. This perspective was a very interesting perspective for us to see. So in my discussion, actually, I'd like to point out a couple of issues which I have already seen that here has been posted as one of the questions by someone from Australian High Commission. In fact, I'll limit my discussion from hard power perspective and soft power perspective. One thing is that recently, and we have seen a number of articles, research that is talking about that this is the era of full spectrum of warfare, that is conventional warfare is coming back. The way we thought that armies no longer will not need to go to war fighting stages, but we are seeing that in some countries it is already happening. Think about annexation of Crimea, and then what is happening in Afghanistan, and gradually we are seeing that this type of warfare is coming back. But one thing we need to understand that conventional, besides hard power, there are other areas that we need to look into. I have my students in Afghanistan and in various parts of the world, and I've had a chance to talk with them last couple of days, especially after this program was confirmed. And then I found that and if you have also noticed some of the articles that have been published to foreign policy, foreign affairs recently, that there are a couple of things that that has been argued that Ismail Khan, the former governor of Herat, his interview was published, I think, yesterday or the day before yesterday. He has argued that Talibans have not changed and will not change, but at the same time he has argued that Talibans have become more cruel, which is clearly a sign of a change. There are more signs of changes, especially in terms of how Talibans have learned to learn from the world, actually, and how they are investing in a couple of areas. For example, my talks with my students in Afghanistan told us that in Herat province, especially where fighting is still going on, but it is almost captured by the Taliban. Talibans are creating soft power appeal. In which areas? Two particular areas. Number one is that they are asking the businessmen to, especially in terms of oil profiteering rackets, they are asking them to reduce the price, and which is helping the general people. So they're trying to make general people happy. They're trying to create their soft power appeal over there, which is making them more acceptable to general people, something that they are complaining that the government was not able to do, but the Taliban have been able to do this. Then second point, very interesting issue, which is the issue of the one that we call in Bangladesh Morana. In Afghan culture, it is the men who have to pay, pay for the whole cost of wedding, and they have to pay a handsome amount of money to the bride's family. In average Afghan families, the amount of money used to be $10,000. Taliban have decreed that no, it cannot be this high, because young boys are not able to afford, to get married paying so much amount of money. So therefore they have imposed what are the ways the local custom can be changed and can be modified, which will help young boys and young men. So here they have been able to successfully employ that, and now men are happy there because they can get married in paying a smaller sum of money as Morana, and they are interested to join. They are being interested to join. So the soft power appeal that Taliban have been able to create, this is something we are forgetting, because we generally tend to talk about hard power issues, but soft power appeal is a big issue, and that is how they are gaining popular support in some of the areas. Then in terms of security, in Taliban controlled area, it is generally considered as peaceful, whereas in big cities, government areas, there are targeted killings, and there were several targeted killings in the month of August, and those were influential people who were killed by gunmen. And then if you see that Taliban, as Sar has pointed out, that they mainly come from Pashtun background. So remember here, Honorable Dr. Mastoor, he was talking about what kind of Islam Taliban want. If you remember in 2004, when Taliban claimed up to Atok Bridge, that is actually a Pakistani territory, but opposite to the Indus River area. So they claimed the area till Atok area. And there they sort of issued their own fatwa that driving in the left side of the road is un-Islamic. So they make things as they go. So they want their version of Islam, which may not have any, because Quran definitely does not talk about driving in which side of the road would be Islamic or un-Islamic. So that is they're doing. Then again, how Taliban learned and creating soft power appeal. Two other things. There has been an establishment of Joint Terrorism Center for Excellence. This was back in September, October, when IS and Taliban, they joined hand to research about how to attract, according to them, brightest minds to get involved with their work. So this is an area that actually we need to be very cautious about, because this has implications, huge implications for Bangladesh. We have seen reports being published that Bangladeshi young boys and men, they are going to Afghanistan for fighting with Taliban. So that is one other issue. And then another one is that Central Asian digital extremists, they have strong connection with Taliban, they have strong connection with Syrian rebels. So they are trying to recruit both men and women via digital platforms. And we know what has happened in Bangladesh, especially after the pandemic. We have learned that there has been a feminization of joblessness. That is, women are the first victims of job cuts. So female entrepreneurs, they have suffered the most. So if through using social media, any approaches are being made in Bangladesh, we do not have any information regarding that yet. So these are some of the areas I would like to highlight that we need to involve in the holistic understanding of what is happening in Afghanistan and what are the implications for Bangladesh. And of course, there are predictions that there will be another round of refugee influx to either Europe or to this South Asian, this region, and also in regional geopolitics, how there might be a new nexus among Iran, Pakistan, and China. So this is another sort of burgeoning sort of alliance or burgeoning cooperation we might see, who would be willing to work with Taliban. And so what will be the implications of that? Because we know and we understand, and many researchers have talked about it, that they are using religion for political purposes. They are not using religion for religious purposes. So that is why my suggestion would be that we need to look into both soft power appeal, how Taliban has created, and what are the bigger implications of that, as well as what are the hard power implications. And I'll end by saying that yes, in the age of a military industrial complex.
I don't know, Professor Lalifor, probably you have logged out or something happened. So thank you. We'll come back to her again once we, if you get the chance to come out with some of the question answers. I would now go to our second discussant, Mr. Farooq Ahmed.
We tend to look at finished, I think.
Okay. Thank you. So Farooq Ahmed, he was the former executive director of BRAC International. Before going to her, let me give a brief introduction about him. So Mr. Farooq Ahmed has retired as the executive director of BRAC International after 19 years of service in BRAC. Mr. Ahmed worked for more than 2 decades at the World Bank, Bangladesh, and retired as senior operations officers in the health, nutrition, and population sector. Currently, Mr. Ahmed sits on the board of social marketing company SMC, Rangpur Dinajpur Rehabilitation Service, RDRS, and BRAC Foundation. Mr. Ahmed completed his master's in health sciences from Johns Hopkins University and master's in economics from University of Dhaka. So over to you, sir, Mr. Farooq Ahmed.
Thank you, Dr. Tawfiq, and respected chair, all protocol maintained. Let me start with, mine will be a little bit different what the keynote speaker and the previous speaker has spoken. Mine will be coming from a development organization coming from Bangladesh to Afghanistan. And in the first place, why did you go there in any case? First thing, when after 3 decades of our work in Bangladesh, learning about one thing, that how do you reduce poverty and empower the poor? So we thought that the board thought that, is there anything that we could share and see, prove the concept that whatever we have learned here in reducing poverty and empowering the poor can be applied in other social contexts if we can contextualize it properly. With this objective, we went to Afghanistan at the invitation of several donors who were funding BRAC in Bangladesh also. And then, of course, the welcome came from the government of Afghanistan. So we went there in this background, and our focus has always been in MDG at that time, now with, of course, the 8 of the 17 sustainable goals. And when we moved there in Afghanistan, we wanted to study and how we work there. First thing, we had to understand the country. So it took a couple of years for us to develop the first country strategy. And we also set up a country advisory committee based on the information provided by all the local colleagues, that who could be our advisory council. And I personally met all of them before we took the very respected persons in their own capacity, like Dr. Sima Samar, who was a human rights activist, and Esanjia, who was at that time, after retiring from the minister cabinet of Karzai government, then Madam Senthai Karkul, who was a member of parliament from independent seats, and then Mr. Aziz Rafi, who was a media person and also a civil society person. So this type of mixed group we took as our advisors to tell us what should we do. In going there, what we understood in the country that we could bring as a tool of poverty. And when we moved, at one point, BRAC was almost in 26 of the 34 provinces. That expansion we made very rapidly with the tools. We took healthcare services, non-formal education, and we had the financial services and capacity building. Also, capacity means in training institutes, establishing training institutes, including nursing institutes, midwifery institutes, and also the research and monitoring capacity. So these were the areas that we concentrated. And I would mention very humbly that even today's speaker, the special guest, was also one of the beneficiaries when he was the director of the Ministry of Public Health, who took the training in the BRAC training centers at the time. That's why he referred. I met him personally when he was the Deputy Minister of Finance. I visited that country many times since 2012 to 2019 and met community leaders, Surah leaders, local providers of services, and cabinet ministers of different ministries, up to the Mr. Abdullah, His Excellency, the CEO of the current government. To understand and to navigate in the situation, and our idea is to provide critical services, what is needed in the difficult environment to provide services to the most needy people. And it was a high, we all know there's a very high mortality and high fertility country. So maternal mortality is one of the highest in the world. Child mortality is very high. Education is very challenging to deliver basic education today, particularly to the girls. Financial services. So we started providing the healthcare services in partnership with the Ministry of Public Health in different provinces, from midwifery training to providing maternity services to pregnant mother, antenatal care, postnatal care, and also the childcare services. There are issues about the immunization program in the country, but we have been able to navigate in the situations. We were stopped many times by the Taliban, where they said, didn't stop us, they said, wait, can you hold and will you know? They stopped us for a couple of weeks, sometimes few weeks, sometimes 1 week, and came back then, okay, go ahead. And then we provided education, particularly for the children who never went to school. That was the thing we learned from Bangladesh, that girls non-formal education we provided. And then we started establishing the girls' schools in the community, taking the teachers from the community and training them, building their capacity. And about more than 3.5 million children are out of school. So we contributed in getting the school children back in the school. We have accessed about close to 500,000 children to the school, and about 360,000 children graduated primary level, of which 83% are girls. We have established the co-education at the pre-primary level, which is 50-50. And for the dropouts, after primary level, some girls don't want to go to the next level, which we partnered with the government in the Ministry of Education, taking them to up to 12th grade and the government has given us 300 schools where we can take them to get the kids up to the 12th level. We have established around 250 other schools where there is no government schools to take the girls at a higher level. The girls who didn't want to go to the higher level education, we provided them with a skills development. We established about 1,200 skills development training centers around the country. We are now operating in 14 districts, of which about 14 provinces, of which about 10 provinces cover the education program. And this is an amazing contribution that our colleagues have made in that country. When we started, we have brought the two things from here. One is the skill and the knowledge from here, and also the subject matter specialists from Bangladesh. But we try to build the capacity within the country so that they can be in the driver's seat, the colleagues from the country itself. And today we have more than 1,800 staff, of which only 20 are expatriates, and about 34% are female colleagues. The teachers, we have now 2,100 teachers, of them 100% are female teachers. So this is a huge contribution in promoting the female education. I'll give one reference. I was in Herat about a couple of years back and went to a government girls' school. It is unscheduled, but was permitted by the principal. Then met the principal and her faculty and asked that, do you know about the black graduates coming to your school? She had 10,000 students in 3 shifts. It had a huge task. But she said to me that, yes, I know each of the about 300 plus students coming from black schools. I said, how come you know, madam? She said 2 things. One, they're very disciplined and they're very engaged students. And then we also subsequently did research and we found our students who have achieving much higher in their literacy and their numeracy in terms of competencies over the other public schools. So we contributed in that way. Also, we trained many government officials. We trained almost 30 out of the 34 provinces. Every province had sent their provincial level officers to Bangladesh, including the Ministry of Rural Development and Reconstruction. Ministry officials came here for 6 months training in BRAC Center in Savar for 6 months, customized training in building how to implement the local projects in the country themselves. So that's the way we try to build the capacity at the district level, province level, at the national level. In the training centers, we also provided training for the other NGO colleagues, other government colleagues who wanted to come for training. So it was a training center. We provided both in-house training as well as the training for the others. We had partnership with the Kabul University for doing research and building our own capacity in research and monitoring. I think when Greg was doing microfinance, that time when I had the
one more minute, please.
Yeah. So we had the what we learned from that country is that the security is a big challenge, weak governance, lack of quality human resource, and program monitoring and supervision, particularly in the winter, is a big challenge. High cost of doing business, and strong cultural beliefs like home delivery is okay, no institutional delivery is needed, an example. So, and also one of the Canadian High Commissioner who lived in the country said in Dhaka in one of the conferences arranged by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, he said, $1 spent in development, 60 cents goes to security. So how do you do development in that country? So we try to build from the community by themselves, not by the armored vehicles. That's how we want to deliver the key critical services to the most needy people. I'll stop here, but I'll take 1 minute that yes, pre-primary, people are hungry. And if we can take the new ideas, even the difficult governors of the provinces like General Atamam that people also said that you are doing a fantastic job, and said pre-primary, co-education, vocational skills, midwifery, and capacity development. These are the specific tasks they really welcomed. So I think people are willing to take the services if we can deliver it in a given context, understanding their cultural values. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Farooq. And very good comments. And to understand that when Professor Lailufar was talking about the soft power within Afghanistan, we can see that Bangladesh is also becoming an important country, at least in South Asia regionally, by using the soft power, like our developmental model, like the NGOs and the others they are doing. So this discussion is very fascinating, that when we talk about the Afghan soft power and Bangladeshi soft power, not only the military confrontations and other things. So thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. Before going to the next discussion, I just want to let the audience know that we have also the representing in this. You are interested, you can give your also comments in the chat box. So now we'll go to our last discussant, Ambassador Shahidul Haq. Let me give a brief introduction of him, and then now he is also a senior advocate. He was the foreign.
Have we lost Professor Tawfiq?
Sorry, I was a little bit disconnected. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So
I can
was
go
just
ahead.
giving a short introduction of Ambassador Shohid. So Ambassador Shohid is now working as a professorial fellow, and he was the Foreign Secretary of Bangladesh from 2013 to 2019. And he also served as the Director for Migration Policy and Global Relation Division of IOM, based in Geneva. Mr. Hawk has also been extensively engaged in negotiations associated with Rohingya crisis. He led Bangladesh side of Bangladesh-Myanmar Joint Working Group on the repatriation of displaced Myanmar nationals from Bangladesh, and also chaired the Bangladesh National Task Force on undocumented Myanmar nationals from 2013 to 2019. So with that introduction, I would now request Mr. Shahidul Haq to give his comment.
Thank you very much, Professor Tawfiq. I hope you can hear me, sir.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Distinguished Vice Chancellor, Professor Tikul Islam, and distinguished colleagues. I will try and be quick so that I can share my thoughts with you within this limited time. But first of all, thanks to all the panelists, in particular Dr. And General Shakhawat, for a very comprehensive presentation. Congratulations, sir. In fact, I'll be building on your presentation. Now, before I start, since everybody was sharing their personal experience with the Afghanistan, let me also sort of share that from 2003 to 2004, when I was with the IOM UN, I have been assigned by the then Director General to act as a special coordinator with the Afghan, and that took me to Kabul and other places in 2003 and 4. And I recall the post-American period where we often used to spend our night in the trenches and always escorted by armed guard. So it was quite scary, thanks to my military experience that helped me not to get too much of faith. And I remember what a beautiful country and the people of Afghanistan are. So with this, I will try and focus on 4 areas, which is basically building on Brigadier Shakhawat's presentation. And it's basically asking questions and trying to see whether we can answer those. The first is that, what are some of the realities, myths, and assumptions regarding Afghanistan? And I'll share with you. Second is that, how could we even partly describe the current situation? I think describing the whole of the situation in Afghanistan sitting in Bangladesh is absolutely ridiculous. Third is what are the regional pair? Brigadier Shakhawat has made it. I just built on it a little, and then see what is the end game in Afghanistan. Is there an end game? That would be my frame. To start with the issue of myth and realities of Afghanistan. Yeah, I'll then building kind of a few narratives. One is that Afghanistan is a civilizational country. I think we often forget that. It has a civilization of recorded 5,000 years, unrecorded 10,000 years. So that's something we should keep in mind. It's not a new state which was set up or a country set up in 200 years back. So, and its modern phase is even 120 years. So modern means when the whole issue of constitutions and and liberalism and the rest of it came up. In fact, we started off with Habibullah Khan in 1901, where basically these things were brought in. So second narrative is that Afghanistan has actually experienced and continue to do so a deep struggle between traditional values versus modern values. And that's where the issue is currently. There are people who do not see that something in between could also be developed the way other Islamic countries have developed. And that's what our distinguished special representative was saying, that they hold the traditional Islamic values, wherefrom they just cannot move, because for them there is nothing called nation. There's only religion. So how could these two could be brought together? And that struggle has always been there in Afghanistan. But let me put a little bit of a context in it. First is that Afghanistan, if it is 5,000 years old, Islam is about 500 years, and the liberal Western values that we talk about is about 250, 200 years old. So this is the context. So we play in this context and try and find a kind of a mixed hybrid governance model. So that's something we need to keep in mind. The other narrative is that geography of Afghanistan is extremely critical, which General Shakwat has rightly pointed out. And it's when I'm talking to you, is remembering the rugged mountains, the harsh hostile terrain. No, we can only talk about hostile terrains, but once you're there, you realize what hostile terrains mean: hot and sunny. But in the midst of that, there are valleys which is lush green with a lot of fruits, the two rivers Amu Darya and Kabul passing through. So it's a land of mystery, lots of contradictions, and land of beauty that I suppose. But there has not been much interest, although it is a Central Asian country. But most of the big powers for a long time treated this as if it is in the margin of Central Asia, somewhere between Central, South, and West Asia. So that's something geography talks about. The other one is that which we have by now come to know, that it is a child of great game. If there's one child of great game that we can think of in South Asia, then it is Afghanistan. And the child somehow or other is not able to come out of his childhood or boyhood and become adult by itself. So that's something we need to keep in mind. And as I said, that it is in Central Asia, and Central Asia itself is extremely volatile. It's extremely uncertain. And Central Asia has still to be stabilized the way we see Europe or even Asia. So, that will give you a little bit of a sense that why we are facing the situation that we are in. And there has been much written about Afghanistan, except Ahmad Rashid's two books, one on Taliban and another on jihad. Extremely, if anyone wants to understand Afghanistan, then must read his Taliban and the Jihad, the two books. That will give you a pretty good idea where the country stands. Now, the next part is how could we describe the current situation in Afghanistan, sitting in Bangladesh? It's quite a difficult proposition, but I'll make an attempt from my own perspective. US and allies' retreat from Afghanistan has been now widely recognized as a big defeat, which will have a larger political implications on the United States, on its allies, and all of us. So that's it will not just a defeat. It will be larger than Vietnam. That's what my understanding is. Now, the second is that Afghanistan is already in a civil war, which is unlikely to end in any definitive outcome. So what we are actually now looking forward to is a region which will be engulfed in civil war, and it will be tribal civil war, which is the unique part of the Afghanistan. The people who will be most sufferer in the whole process is Afghan people across the land, across the country, and death, starvation, humiliation, and hopelessness looks like would be their.
Yes.
Yes,
I think somebody has fiddled with the screen. Anyway,
Yes.
so I'll go ahead. And by now already there's 1/3 of Afghan people are displaced within the country, and some of this will spill over, and some of the speakers have already talked about it. But the most interesting phenomena is the mullahs, the ulamas were always there, and the successive dynasties has kept ulamas happy. But ulamas has never challenged the state, the government, till very recently. And the whole issue of rise of Taliban's is indeed very spectacular phenomena. And especially their comeback after the devastating loss that they had. And we all know that they had a safe haven across the land from where they were still running their government till very recently. But they have, strangely, the America has never did this kinds of a thing, which they did with Taliban, which is signing a peace treaty with a non-state actor in 29th of February 2020, whereby they have de facto recognized Taliban. So that we have to keep it in the equation. So they have found their new recognition, wealth, and the strength which they are now negotiating, which is very difficult when you have ideology and the power mixed together, and we know what that can do. Let's talk about the regional powers. Pakistan, I need not to elaborate. I think justice has been done. It's a frontline state. It is a major player in Afghanistan, and always been from 1947 onwards with the partition. India, as you know, the most loser in 1947 because they had no longer any direct frontier with Afghanistan, and they wanted to play a role in the Afghanistan, which they could not. So with 2001 government, they had got their footprint back. They have invested $3 billion. I'll not go into that. And both the Pakistan and India looks at Afghanistan to sort of a kind of a from Pakistan looks at from the to stop the Indians coming in, and India looks at Pakistan to coming into the Afghanistan and having a front. India has two major strategic priority, as I could see. It's not only Pakistan sitting in Afghanistan, also China. And I'll come to this interesting part of the China. And we know Iran is a mixed kind of a policy towards Taliban, but it looks like that all these three countries are in touch with the Taliban. The most interesting kind of a actor currently is China. China has, for some reason or other, been relatively less involved in the great game of Afghanistan. Historically, they could have, but they have not done. Now, if you look at the border, which Professor Shakwat has shown, there's an interesting kind of a border between China and India, which passes through 350 kilometer, what is called a corridor we call Wakhan corridor. It's like a needle goes from Badakhshan province to Xinjiang province. So that's the link. And that's a very hostile territory. It's about 15 to 60 kilometer wide. And it goes and lands in the Xinjiang province, which is the Uyghurs' habitat. So there's a Muslim population there. So the interesting is that after Badakhshan was taken over by the Taliban this time, Taliban immediately got an invitation from the Chinese, and they went and met the Chinese foreign minister in Xinjiang province, a place called Tanzian. And they had an understanding. And we see the China seeing the vacuum by withdrawal of the United States will certainly play a major role. So that we need to also keep in it. It's not only BRI and Asia Pacific, but it's larger for China. Now, Afghanistan has done also one thing. The Afghan government, the national government, they have been trying to become a member of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization because they saw the 8 of their near and far neighbors are part of the SCO. And they thought that by being there, they will have a platform to describe their situation. So that's something also need to be kept in mind in terms of Shanghai Cooperation Organization, where they are observers, but they have not been given the membership, despite the fact both India and China is a member. So I'm coming to an end with some concluding thoughts, which is there an end game? Is there an end to the atrocities? Is there an end to the suffering of Afghanistan? Which unfortunately, I would say no, because the last 20 years of governance in Afghanistan have very limited impact on the general people of Afghanistan. It's very common, but that's what the reality is. The thinking, the life, and the mindset of the majority of Afghans continue to be in pre-2001 period. The life is different. So what has happened in the last 20 years? There's a two kind of a world in the same country has been evolved. We have a city-based educated youth, and we have a village-based normal farmers or drug dealers and all kinds of things. So that has also divided the country. It's not only physically divided, but also divided mentally, which wasn't there so acute earlier. Although during the Russian period, there was some bit of it. I'll just take 2-3 minutes. Now, in terms of looking at Afghanistan historically, I found Daud Khan made a very interesting comment who ruled in 1953 to 63. And I quote, "Afghanistan is a backward country." Very harsh comment. The Prime Minister is saying it. But we must do something about it or die as a nation, unquote. So it was a quite a visionary comment that Daud Khan made, although we know his fate. Now, it's true that Afghan people are suffering from the identity crisis. They are fragmented. But what we could do, and there's one name which comes out from the UN side, because I just cannot leave the platform without mentioning the UN role, which is very limited right now. Although we want to show that we are a big player there. Lakhdar Brahimi, after his special envoy in late last century and early this century, he got frustrated actually negotiating between all these fractions. It was I'm talking about 20,000. So he said, and I quote from his report, "We are dealing here, bracket Afghanistan, with a failed state which looks like an infected wound. You don't even know where to start cleaning it." I think that's still valid. And it will be more obvious when we see in the coming months and years. So that's where you are. And Ahmad Rashid, in his book, whatever said in 20 years back, still valid. He said there's highly likely to be any solution where all the Afghan will be united and we'll have a modern state or semi-modern state or Islamic state, whichever comes in. And he said, "I will wait, but I don't think I will see it before my death." Now, but where is the hope? I cannot just leave with a very desperate note. Can international community lose hope on Afghanistan, especially the people of Afghanistan? Certainly not. I think for that, I think the neighboring countries has to withdraw their hands. That's the first thing. Because unless we do that, I don't think any stability or peace will come back. Everybody is trying to find its area of influence, the neighboring countries and the far neighboring countries in Afghanistan. And people are playing with that. But we cannot just leave it like that, because the stakes are very high, including for countries like Bangladesh. And it has been narrated by my other families. Thank you very much. Taking a little longer time.
No problem. Thank you, Ambassador Shahidullah, for very interesting comments. We will, before going to our chief guest, I will just take 5 minutes time for just addressing maybe by our keynote speaker 1 or 2 questions coming in the chat box. There are lots of questions, as I said, that by the participants. I'm very grateful to them. I'm so happy by seeing those questions, but I'm also just apologizing that I cannot address or take all the questions now. There are very interesting questions like, will international community be able to avoid the repeat of history? Probably a little bit touched by already Ambassador Shahidul Haq. Is there any area of hope? But then again, there was also interesting question came by participants like, what should be the best Indian strategy after the withdrawal of US forces? That's also a fascinating question to be pondered. But I will come with two specific questions to Brigadier Sakhawat, our keynote speaker, and I will request him to answer those in maybe 2-3 minutes. So the first question that I would like to see, it's related with the core problem of the crisis, that why we are here now in 2021, why we came, or the whole region came back to the same square back, and whose fault it is. So the question maybe can be placed like this: these Americans and the NATO and the Western forces, were they really part of the problem, or they were the part of the solution where we are standing now? It is can be put like this. Is it the Americans who are now should be blamed for the crisis that we are seeing? Now, Afghan government is also saying that. We can say in the official statement by the Afghan president that the quick withdrawal of Americans has put the crisis into these stages. So I do understand it's a very blunt and direct question that is does American position is the main root cause of the problem now we are saying, or it was also part of the solution? That's first question. Then the second question is, we are seeing that the ground situation is changing very fast. Every day the news are coming, and many cities, and probably most of the cities, the many mayors of those cities in Afghanistan, they are the daytime mayor, and in the night time it is being controlled by probably Taliban. Most of the cities now we know about the villages also. So what if there is a Taliban government? What would be the implication for South Asia? So these are the two questions to Brigadier Sakhawat. If you can just try to answer within 3 minutes, sir. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tawfiq. It's very difficult to just answer in one line, because the questions are very deep-rooted in a sense. But before that, let me introduce my another guest, Dr. David Cheeseman from UK. He's very much acquainted with South Asia, particularly his doctorate done in Sindh. So I'm sure he is taking a lot of interest in the discussion. He's from UK, Luton-based. Now, question is the first, whether US is the problem or the solution to the problem. It's my personal opinion. I mean no offense to anybody. US, to me, has never been a solution to any problem. Look at Vietnam. I mean, the way they have left Vietnam. Of course, now Vietnam is a good friend of US. But then you follow, except that success in First and Second World War, I don't see any US success anywhere. Because you can't build nation. You can't come with the aim and keep on changing your aim all the time. Now look what happened to Iraq. Iraq is now extension of Iran. I mean, this is what I study and what I feel. And visiting Iran, I found that it is almost has become extension of Iran. Look at Syria. What they have done into a secular country and a secular Arab country. Whatever it is, they had a dictatorship or whatever it is. Look at Libya. They must have been a tyrant. But then Libya today is absolutely almost a shattered country, which was so rich. Therefore, I don't think US has learned the colonialism from the Brits, from the British colonialism. At least they knew how to handle the occupation. Now look at Afghanistan. First of all, the CIA came with a covert operation against Soviet Russia. Once the Soviet has withdrawn, the US has also withdrawn and left it to the regional countries. And I showed you that the national game of Afghanistan, snatching Caracas from one to another. And that is exactly what has happened. Pakistan went into, and then, of course, the India also came into, and then there was a civil war, and then Pakistan brought Taliban. And Taliban was almost being recognized by America if Rosalind Carter was not intervened. However, now the Taliban has, US has come. The first aim was that they wanted to eliminate the Al-Qaeda. They killed Osama bin Laden. I think they achieved their aim, but they continued. They overthrown Taliban, fine, but they didn't understand that these are the phoenix and they will come back again. And then what they happened? When they were strong on the ground, they did not initiate negotiation with Taliban. Now, when they started negotiating, when they were on the weak side, and they saw the Taliban had given them the dictation what they are going to do. They said, we are not going to discuss with Ashraf Ghani government. That's it. I don't know whether they change their mind tomorrow or not. Taliban have played very smart one. They have got the de facto recognition from USA, and then of course from Russia, from China, from others. So USA to me has never been a solution to any problem. Now, before I finish this, my own opinion, many may differ. I would say one thing which I missed out, and very interesting anecdote. Look, the British lost in 3 wars, almost lost 3 wars in Afghanistan, and they survived only 38 years. The British Empire went hither and thither. And then you look at Russia. Russia collapsed after they withdrew from Afghanistan 14 years. And as somebody said, I think it is Professor Lairufar, that how America would be looked now, will they be able to contain the competition with China? I have all the doubt. If China can take $400 billion to Iran, then they will bring $200 billion to Afghanistan, and they will use the soft power. So I don't think that the US has always been, to my mind, is the solution, but it's the problematic wherever they have gone. Now, this is absolutely right. Not only mayors, there are reports that tanks have been left and surrendered by the government forces. This is the characteristics in Afghanistan. Most of them, they find those a strong party. Now, it is true that at night, at daytime, they're with the government. At night, they're with the Taliban. This is long tradition. They were with the British when they first went in Kabul, and at night, they were against it. And I would request you to read 2 more books. Ahmad Rashid has written more other books. His latest books is Chaos, which I'm trying to get it. But I would request if you can get hold of 2 books. One is William Dalrymple, who writes a voluminous book, Return of King. And there's one original book, which is known as From Sipahi to Subedar, written by Sitaram, translated in English. He was the first-hand knowledge. That means he was a company Sipahi who rose to the rank of Subedar, fought the first Afghan war, and he was imprisoned for 27 months when the British were withdrawing. If you get that book, it's a very rare book, and I'm very thankful to Dr. David that he got this book from England for me. It's a fantastic reading if you want to read the part of 1857 and then the British rule in India.
Thank you.
So it is very difficult to say that which side the Afghan government troops would be taking in days to come.
Thank you very much. So we are now at the last part of our webinar. I would now request our chief guest, Ambassador Masood bin Momen, to give his deliberation. Before going to him, let me give a brief introduction of him. Ambassador Masood bin Momen is now the Foreign Secretary, the Senior Secretary of Bangladesh. He joined as Foreign Secretary on 31st December 2019. As a career diplomat, Ambassador Masood has long been serving in different capacities at the headquarters and Bangladesh's missions abroad. Prior to his appointment as the Foreign Secretary, he had been Bangladesh's ambassador and permanent representative to the United Nations since 2015. Before that, he served as Bangladesh's ambassador to Japan from 2012 to 2015. He also served as ambassador to Italy and permanent representative to the Food and Agriculture Organization, World Food Programme, and International Fund for Agricultural Development from 2008 to 2012. So we are very grateful to Ambassador Masood bin Momen for giving his time within his very big schedule. So, sir, over to you.
Thank you, Professor Tawfiq, for the introduction, and also your center, that is the South Asian Institute of Policy and Governance of North-South University, for organizing this very timely webinar. Vice Chancellor Professor Atiqul Islam, again, thanks to your university's patronization for these kinds of events from time to time, and also your very presence, I think, and gives it special importance. Brigadier Shakwat, thank you for your keynote speech, and very insightful, and also later on during the question answer session, your further complementing the views that you have expressed. Also, the three discussants today, Professor Lailafur Yasmin and Mr. Farooq Ahmed from Prague, and Excellency Shahidul Haq, Ambassador Shahidul Haq, former Foreign Secretary, for their pieces on this evolving scenario. Very good afternoon to you all. First of all, I'd like to thank the North-South University for inviting me to share my thoughts with you on the first evolving situation in Afghanistan. We are currently observing a radical transformation taking shape in Afghanistan, which is sure to have a profound effect on the geopolitical balance of power in the region and beyond. And at the outset, Mr. Masroor from the Afghan government has quickly sort of given his take on the current scenario, and also the impending negotiations to be held in Doha. Afghanistan's history is marked by successive periods of foreign invasion, occupation, and withdrawal. So much so that the country has been called, as mentioned by Brigadier Shakwat, the graveyard of empires, a melting pot of diverse civilizations and cultures. Afghanistan has traditionally been considered the gateway to South Asia from the West, and is the western frontier of the South Asian subcontinent. It has had profound influence on the culture, religion, ethnicity, language, cuisine, and trade and commerce on this region for the past 2 millennia. And as such, we, the people of South Asia, have a deep interest on the events unfolding in that country. We are all familiar with Afghanistan's recent history. The Soviet Union's army went into Afghanistan in 1979 to support a socialist secular government. We know how the Mujahideens were created, who launched a jihad against the Soviets. Then the Soviets were forced to retreat in 1989. Now the Americans have decided to exit Afghanistan after waging a 20-year-long battle with the Taliban. The war was aimed at eliminating Al-Qaeda, vanquishing the Taliban, and transforming Afghanistan into something resembling a Western-style, modern and democratic nation-state. With none of these goals fully achieved, America's intervention, like the British intervention in the 19th century, is ending unsatisfactorily, to say the least. The Afghan people are fiercely independent, resilient, hardworking, and pragmatic. Like any other people, they strongly desire and deserve a peaceful life. A pluralistic and prosperous Afghanistan is not a dream, rather it is a fundamental necessity for peace and stability in Afghanistan, in the region, and beyond. Time and again, Afghanistan has been prone to sectarian violence, and the country has remained divided along tribal and ethnic fault lines. Right now, there can be nothing more important than the elimination of the scourge of terrorism and ethnic strife, which can only be possible through dialogue and cooperation among stakeholders, both within Afghanistan as well as from outside. Let us see how this fact aligns with Bangladesh's South Asia policy. The genesis of Bangladesh's South Asia policy can be traced back to the historic speech of the father of the nation delivered in Kolkata on 6 February 1972, where he proclaimed, "We will work together with our neighbors in South Asia for collective development and prosperity," unquote. Further, the Honorable Prime Minister's visionary policy is that the region must rise and prosper together, leaving no space for inequality. Otherwise, there will be instability in the region, allowing foreigners to interfere in our affairs. In short, our South Asia policy rests on the guiding principle that the countries of the region must work together and cooperate with each to reach our common goals of socio-economic development and prosperity. It is in this spirit that Bangladesh engages with the international community on matters of reconstruction and development in Afghanistan. Bangladesh has remained consistently and actively engaged with Afghanistan through participation in various international meetings and conferences on the reconstruction of the country. Bangladesh was an eager proponent for Afghanistan's membership to the SAARC in 2007. Bangladesh closed down its mission in Kabul following the Russian invasion of Afghanistan, and though it has been decided to reopen the embassy, it has not been possible to do so because of security concerns. The Bangladesh ambassador currently in Uzbekistan is presently concurrently accredited to Afghanistan. As soon as the situation is conducive, we would like to reopen our embassy in Kabul. Following the hasty exit of about 95% of the NATO forces stationed there since 2001, well ahead of the stipulated date of 11 September 2021, the stage is now set for the beginning of a new era in the region, which could lead to the shaping of new equations and the formation of new alliances between the countries which are likely to be impacted by these developments. Having spent around $1.5 trillion and suffered over 2,500 casualties, President Joe Biden has stuck to the previous administration policy of leaving Afghanistan, justifying his decision on war fatigue and the futility of spilling more American blood, financial drain, and the hopeless task of nation building. This strikingly resembles the Geneva Accord allowing the Soviets to return home after a 9-year-long occupation of Afghanistan. Mikhail Gorbachev had no option but to pull out at the cost of 14,453 Soviet soldiers. At that time, neither Mujahideens nor Muhammad Najibullah had absolute legitimacy. The victors could not save the Afghans from falling into chronic civil war. Soon it descended into complete anarchy, and the Cold War kept the matters complicated. There is a very real possibility of something similar happening in Afghanistan this time around too, though Afghan president has announced that the departure of the USA will allow Afghans the opportunity to take control of their own destiny. We all welcome this assertion. Encouraged by the impending American withdrawal and the increased credibility, the Taliban has mounted a renewed offensive and claimed to have established control over most part of the country's territory. The rise of the Taliban has less to do with Mr. Biden's decision and more to do with Afghanistan's domestic regional political ecosystem that has been unfolding for quite some time now. The Taliban triumphalism has three critical dimensions. First, the Taliban are very much part of the Afghan society and they are there to stay in Afghanistan. The second dimension would be the rise of regional responsibility to tackle the Afghan crisis as the Taliban-Afghan negotiating teams may continue to meet in Doha, now in Troika Plus format, in hopes of charting an agenda for a common strategic goal. Failing to do so might compel the Afghan neighbors to pursue solutions suiting their own interests. The third one, playing on the quantum of violent extremism in Afghanistan, or in that matter, the political economy of extremism across the region, external actors will find Afghan ethnic fault lines as their strategic anchor, bringing about new security concerns and uncertainties to Afghanistan as well as to the region. Despite being a landlocked country that should not be hold back its economy, as the country is situated in a vital juncture on the Silk Route. China's Belt and Road Initiative and China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, as well as Russia's initiative TAPI, all of these have the potential to significantly reshape Afghan economy. Connectivity potentials in broader South Asia hinges on a stable Afghanistan. As a country believing in realizing the full potential of connectivity, we will be following the developments very closely. In this backdrop, let me now say some words on our present thinking on Afghanistan. Bangladesh firmly believes in the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Afghanistan. A democratic and pluralistic Afghanistan, as chosen by its people, can only guarantee stability in the country and continue its path towards economic development. In this regard, Bangladesh considers itself a potential development partner and a friend of Afghanistan. We stand ready to share our best practices with Afghanistan in a range of specific areas, such as basic education, women's empowerment, community healthcare, sanitation, human resources development, agriculture, climate change adaptation, disaster management, and ICT-enabled public service delivery. We will be working in the coming days to identify more areas of bilateral cooperation to add substance to our relations with Afghanistan in these and other sectors for mutual benefit. The successful outreach of Bangladeshi NGOs operating in Afghanistan in the areas of microcredit and other social services has earned global reputation. BRAC has kept its steady presence in Afghanistan for quite some time, and today we have learned a great deal from Mr. Farouk. Consequently, schools and health clinics have been built in far-flung villages that had never had them before. We wish and pray for the safety of our nationals working for the development of Afghan people. Bangladesh's interest in expanding relations with Afghanistan stems from a genuine desire to assist the people of Afghanistan. We firmly believe that it is upon the people of Afghanistan to rebuild their country and decide the course of their future. Bangladesh welcomes Afghan people's commitment to carry forward the ongoing peace process in quest for an inclusive society. We are of the view that the strengthening of democratic institutions, including endogenous ones, and unimpeded socio-economic development in Afghanistan with the active participation of the international community remains important. The daunting task ahead is to build an efficient public service delivery system suitable for the Afghan people, given the geography and ethnic divide and millennium-old decentralized structure that Afghanistan has. While we welcome peace talks involving important players, I think the United Nations, as a neutral broker, should step up at this critical juncture. We don't want to see a fellow South Asian state, a fellow member of SAARC, and its people suffer anymore. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Masood bin Momen, for your very insightful remarks and the comments and a pathway for a future Bangladesh-Afghanistan relationship. We have already heard about it as a soft power and as a development partner. Bangladesh has many ways to contribute in Afghan development and maybe vice versa. So thanks very much for your this final comments. Before going to our today's chair of the session, Professor Atikul Islam, I would again apologize for not allowing all participants' questions to be answered because of shortage of the time. And before having the deliberation by Professor Atikul Islam, I just have one information to share with you. We just this morning probably our Vice Chancellor received a note verbal from Pakistan High Commission. They have shared a note verbal about their position in Afghanistan. We acknowledge that we have received it, and I just read a few points from that note verbal that Pakistan government, they have said that Pakistan therefore calls on Afghan different parties to eschew the military solution, protect innocent civilian lives, including women and children, and engage in serious negotiation to realize a durable political settlement. So it is a 5 pages document, so it is not possible as to read out the whole dose, but I'm sure that who are interested, you can get it also from the net also. Before going to Professor Atikul Islam, I will just take a leave from all of you. After his speech, we will have a kind of a concluding thing that we have planned a little bit differently. We will show our tribute to Afghan people at the end by playing a Afghan music. When Professor Islam will finish his speech, we will play our tribute. As we do understand, as a South Asian citizens, their people are also like us. They have their personal lives, they have their music, their poems, their novels. So it's not Afghanistan always been portrayed like a war-torn nation. It is not the only side of Afghanistan. There are lively people, there are intellectuals, there are artists. So by showing respect to all people of Afghanistan, we will finish our today's webinar. And I am also taking leave and now finally handing it over to our chair of the session, Professor Islam.
Honorable Chief Guest of this function, a benefactor and a friend to North-South University, Ambassador Mr. Masood bin Momen, Foreign Secretary of the People's Republic of Bangladesh, our main speaker, Brigadier General Shakawat Hussain, Ambassador Shahidul Haq, ex-Foreign Secretary, Dr. Lailafur Yasmin, Mr. Farooq Ahmed of BRAC, and our Afghan government representative who earlier spoke in a very thoughtful and eloquent manner. Other participants, ladies and gentlemen, North-South University is extremely satisfied that such a good webinar took place on an extremely topical current issue that concerns us all on Afghanistan, the sort of transition that is taking place in Afghanistan. My knowledge of Afghanistan is not from reading the books of history. I am basically a student of accounting, so you can excuse my ignorance of lots of things. But I have some idea about Afghanistan from Sayyid Mustafa Ali's Deshi Bideshi. Having read that, I get the impression that they swing from one extreme to the other. At one stage, it was all Buddhist country, then became 100% almost Muslim country. And then if you look at the change of power there, when King Amanullah was deposed by a gentleman called Bacha Sakau, it was not a very pleasant thing. And when subsequently, Nur Muhammad Taraki and the other one, President Najibullah, they were not disposed of in a kind manner either. So things go like that there. And we all know that that is a country where very conservative, their own brand of belief, Islamic belief exists, and they want to, or majority of them want to lead their lives following that sort of a moral code. Let me not go into any sort of details, except that after hearing from you all, my understanding is that there are pluses and minuses for. It is my impression that Afghanistan was always a country where proxy wars have been fought. And at this time, looks like it's the most complex kind of proxy war awaiting Afghanistan. Let us not forget the miseries of normal people in that country that might happen given the sudden withdrawal of the United States and gradual, not gradual, really violent occupation of land by the Taliban. My reading is this: for Pakistan, probably they will think it gives them this strategic depth for defense, maybe against India. And they also may think that it will be a friendly force in power since they created and nurtured Taliban. But the minus side could be that there will be possibility of chaos, civil war, and consequent influx of refugees into Pakistan, a country whose economy is under tremendous pressure, almost crumbling. If you look at India, it's, again, please excuse my simplicity on these things. You may think things are much more complex because my knowledge doesn't go as deep. I would say India, if I was India, I'd be nervous about the withdrawal of the Americans, because we all know that whenever Taliban comes into power, the Haqqani group, fostered by the ISI of Pakistan, will have a large role in any Taliban government. That is worrying. Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed has already been moving into Afghanistan. They're relocating there. When those things happen, you can understand that, once the Taliban can settle down there, they might want to carry on their jihad in other countries a bit. So, Kashmir and other things could be, they may try to interpret there. We don't know, but India have good reasons to be nervous. China, again, as an ally of Pakistan, it may get a bigger role in Afghanistan post-US withdrawal. But then it may have a negative impact also in the fact that China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, the CPEC, could come under pressure. The Taliban may not be that friendly. On top of that, the Taliban might feel sympathy towards their brethren in Xinjiang, the Uyghurs. So China will watch that carefully. If you look at Russia, they will be happy to see US humiliated in Afghanistan, because they believe that US, staged or behind the stage work for their humiliation in Afghanistan, a couple of decades ago. So they might see it as a nice payback or natural justice or reversal of fortune, whatever you say. Russia looks like trying to forge some relationship with Pakistan these days. So growing links with Pakistan may allow them a somewhat bigger role in Afghanistan. Iran will be concerned because it's a neighbor. They have a long border going along. And then it has its Shia population in general in Afghanistan, particularly the Hazaras that they want to protect. So there can be some economic opportunities open up there too in the absence of the United States. We can go on and speculate about what role might Turkey play or other Islamic countries play, etc., etc. I wouldn't go there because you are the experts. I learned quite a lot. And as far as Bangladesh is concerned, my simple view is this: Afghanistan and Bangladesh are very much connected. I can tell you, my mother's side is entirely from Afghanistan. They're Pathans, right? They still do not eat much fish. Anyway, there's always close links between Afghanistan and Bangladesh, not only the religious thing, but culturally also. The thing that worries me, one is the suffering that might fall upon the population of Afghanistan. And the other thing is, if the Taliban can really get well ensconced in Kabul, are we going to see again young boys from Bangladesh go there for jihad or to be trained for jihad? If that happens, that will be very pathetic for us, and I hope that it doesn't happen. Afghanistan does not become a school for radicalization of kids. With that, thanking you all for your kind participation, and hoping to have more, these kind of seminars in future. Let me finish here. Once again, thanks a lot for your kind attendance and participation and what should I say, presentations. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Atikul Islam, for very interesting analysis about what's going to be happen in coming days. Even being an accounting professor, you really analyze the thing like a political scientist and geostrategist, like what will be happening in China and Iran, and also very interesting analysis indeed, sir. So with that, again, I would thank to all the panelists, discussants, and especially the chief guest, and also the special guest who joined for just half an hour. And with that, we are concluding this session, but now we will play a kind of Afghan music, a kind of a video kind of a music, and with that, we will finish this session. So I request our team to start playing the music, a tribute to Afghan people for their peace and prosperity. Okay, thank you very much for again for being with us. We're finishing. Goodbye.